Fighting for the Faithful. A new initiative seeks to strengthen religious freedom. We have a report and reaction. Flying the flag. Analysis of a Supreme Court case that is important to Christians. John Paul II Award. We hear from a Catholic priest who received an honor for his work on interfaith dialogue. And on the march, thousands of pro-lifers gather in a European city. We'll explain. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. President Joe Biden says that he will not tolerate terrorists targeting places of worship. Over the weekend, an armed man took 4 people hostage during a 10-hour standoff at a Texas synagogue. As the FBI continues to investigate what happened, top Homeland Security officials issue a new warning for faith-based communities. White House Correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, good evening to you. Tonight, that warning is this for faith-based communities, that they have and will likely continue to be targets of violence by both domestic violent extremists and those inspired by foreign terrorists.
In Texas, a place of peace, prayer, and worship turned into a place of horror as hostages had to flee for their lives. The hostage taker killed. The White House says the attacker had been checked against U.S. government databases multiple times prior to entering the country, and adds there's no question about what unfolded in that synagogue.
When somebody goes into a house of worship and threatens and holds hostage individuals who are there, that is an act of terror. That is terrorism.
Meanwhile, will Russia invade Ukraine? More high-level talks are planned in hopes of keeping the peace.
The State Department says Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and then meet with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Geneva on Friday.
We're now at a stage where Russia could at any point launch an attack in Ukraine. And what Secretary Blinken is going to go do is highlight very clearly there is a diplomatic path forward. It is the choice of President Putin and the Russians to make.
And back home, as money from the bipartisan infrastructure law starts flowing out, all $1.2 trillion, Mitch Landrieu will be in charge of overseeing every dime, coordinating infrastructure projects with states and localities, a massive undertaking. The former New Orleans mayor saying stewardship of public dollars is a high priority and that it's not a race to cut ribbons.
As a country, we haven't spent this amount of money on infrastructure in generations. So we're talking about how to do it with accountability and transparency, on time, on task, on budget, spending taxpayer dollars both wisely and well.
Also tonight, President Biden had nothing on his public schedule today, but keep in mind he has a news conference tomorrow. He's been criticized as of late for not holding enough of them. And separately, if you're looking for a free at-home COVID-19 test, listen to this. You can go to covidtest.gov. That's covidtests.gov starting tomorrow for your free COVID-19 test. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, the Supreme Court hears oral arguments in a religious freedom case today. The case, Shurtleff versus Boston, addresses whether the city of Boston violated the First Amendment when it refused a group's request to fly a Christian flag temporarily outside of City Hall. And joining me now is Andrea Picciotti Bayer, director of the Conscious Project and legal analyst for EWTN News. Andrea, welcome back. Always so great to see you.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Tracy. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. So let's talk more about this case and what's at the heart of it.
Well, it's really interesting. It's an intersection between free speech and the Establishment Clause. And we start off with the background of the City Hall of Boston. In front of City Hall, there are 3 flagpoles. On the first flagpole is the flag of the United States of America. The second flies the flag of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And on most days, on the third flagpole, the City of Boston flies their city flag. But they allow private groups to fly flags to commemorate historic events or different communities within Boston, including different foreign countries' flags. And so for 12 years, the city had approved over 280 requests to fly flags. Some of those flags include the country of Cuba, of China, and of the LGBT community in Boston. But in 2017, Harold Shurtleff asked for permission to fly what he called the Christian flag as part of Camp Constitution's celebration of Constitution Day. Now, I had never heard of the Christian flag, but it turns out it's a thing. And it's a white flag, and in the upper quarter is a blue block and a red Latin cross on it. And he was told by city officials that his request was denied because they were concerned passersby would think that the city was endorsing Christianity. So, of course, Shurtleff was not to be stopped, and he went to court. And today, this morning, on Tuesday, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in his case, claiming that the city violated his free speech rights and that there was no problem in raising a Christian flag to celebrate Constitution Day.
And what did the justices have to say during oral arguments?
You know, it was fascinating. I love listening to these oral arguments. It was always great to be able to go in there in person, but to be able to connect to it, and everyone should really look forward to the opportunity to see the oral arguments or to listen to oral arguments by connecting to C-SPAN or to the court's website. All of them were engaged, and it seemed like an overwhelming majority of the justices thought that the city of Boston could not refuse flying that flag when they opened up the flagpole's use for all sorts of other people to fly flags.
And when do you think that we'll have any kind of resolution on this? When do you think the ruling will be?
Well, it looks like it could go until the end of the term, which is in June, but it could come sooner because it's kind of an easy case. When you open what's called a public forum, you can't discriminate based on the viewpoint of the person wanting to be there. And in this case, they were discriminating because the flag to be flown was a Christian flag.
And before we wrap up this case right here, Andrea, tell us really, really the importance of this when it comes to religious freedom in the First Amendment.
Absolutely, Tracy. This is another confirmation of the importance of free speech. Again, that the government can't restrict speech based on viewpoint. But it's also a chance for us as Americans to kind of step back and think, why was it that the city of Boston thought that a Christian flag would be divisive? And why was it that in our oral arguments, people were thinking about other flags that surely would cause problems, like flying a swastika or a Ku Klux Klan flag? And we really need to think about, we know that our faith is a faith of peace, and it isn't there to cause division, but to bring us together as a country. And religious pluralism is the best way to be stronger as a nation.
And before I let you go, there's another case that's heading to the Supreme Court, and that is the case with a football coach, high school football coach, who was praying on the field. Tell us why that is going to the Supreme Court and a little bit more about that case.
Absolutely. This is a really interesting case. It's a coach named Joseph Kennedy, and at the end of games, in the middle of the field, he would kneel down and pray. And he was actually fired by the school district for doing that. Originally suspended and then fired. His case has gone through the courts and is going to be heard by the Supreme Court, where really we should know that individuals can express their faith even in their jobs and not be limited by the government, whether it's a school district or a place of business, from being able to freely show the importance of their faith in their life and in their work.
And we know you'll be following that, and we'll be following
Absolutely.
you. Thank you so much, Andrea. It was so great to see you and get your analysis.
Thank you, Tracy.
Two high-ranking Vatican officials have tested positive for the coronavirus. Cardinal Pietro Parolin is the Holy See Secretary of State. Archbishop Edgar Peña-Pera is the Deputy Secretary. Both are fully vaccinated. They are the highest-ranking Holy See employees to test positive for COVID-19. Germany wants to remove a ban that prohibits doctors from advertising abortions.
Wir wollen damit einen unhaltbaren Rechtszustand beenden.
The country's new justice minister wants to end criminal penalties of up to 2 years in prison. He says laws which govern performing abortions in Germany will not change. At least 3 people are dead following a drone strike against an oil facility in Yemen. The attacks yesterday targeted tankers at an oil depot in Abu Dhabi. Fires extended to the international airport. In retaliation, the Saudi-led coalition conducted airstrikes against Yemen's capital last night, killing more than 10 people. Coming up, the former ambassador at large for international religious freedom tells us about his new initiative. While the First Amendment guarantees religious freedom to all Americans, attacks on these liberties continue to increase in the United States and also around the world. And now a new effort aimed at protecting religious freedom is being launched. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has more.
It's called the National Committee for Religious Freedom, and its focus is on protecting religious liberties by getting candidates elected at the local, state, and federal level. It's headed by former Ambassador for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback.
As I came back from working on international religious freedom issues and saw the decline here in both officialdom by the government and societally, the reduced respect for it, we've got to start fighting for this right here. America needs religious freedom, but religious freedom around the world needs America too.
Ambassador Brownback tells me he's hopeful that both Republicans and Democrats will support the committee. Though the issue is not as bipartisan as it has been historically, President Joe Biden declared January 16th Religious Freedom Day. However, a leaked Health and Human Services memo reveals the Biden administration seeks to unenforce the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Former Attorney General Jeff Sessions is also serving on the committee.
I fear that our commitment to religious freedom is beginning to be eroded, that we are continuing to see hostility to all forms of religious faith in this extremely secular world.
The head of the committee's founding organization worries religion is losing its place in American society.
It's being attacked by cultural and political elites who demand that religion be removed from our public life and who defame as bigots and haters those with whom they disagree on matters of religion and public policy.
Religious leaders are also part of the effort.
Religious freedom belongs to everybody. It's a right every one of us possesses in full measure. And this organization is rightly dedicated to the promotion of a vibrant religious freedom for everybody.
Bottom line, the nonprofit, nonpartisan committee hopes to preserve religious liberties one vote at a time. Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
And joining me now to discuss is Ambassador Sam Brownback, chairman of the National Committee for Religious Freedom and former U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom. Ambassador, great to have you back on.
Oh, it's a pleasure to join you, Tracy. Always good to be on the show.
We always love having you. So tell us, why exactly was this committee formed and why now?
Well, we're seeing a decline in religious freedom in the United States, and this is the cornerstone nation on religious freedom. If the United States starts to slip on this, it will have ramifications around the world, and we're seeing it slip. We're seeing synagogues attacked just this last weekend, and we need people to have a fundamental respect for the institutions, but also the practice of religious freedom. That's so central, and we're seeing it slip, and so really felt like now is the time we needed to get this launched.
Yeah, I want to go back to that, what you just mentioned about the synagogue attacks. I mean, really right on the heels of Religious Freedom Day that happened on Saturday. I know you were in sort of a similar situation when you were governor of Kansas. Talk about that and your reaction to what happened on Saturday at that synagogue in Texas.
Well, while I was governor of the state of Kansas, I had a synagogue attacked in my state. A shooter showed up looking to shoot and kill Jews. Now, he ended up shooting Christians, but his objective was to shoot and kill Jews. And as governor, boy, I immediately went over to that synagogue and I told people, we are going to stand with you. We support your right to be able to practice your faith freely and openly. That's another key piece of it. And we're going to provide additional protection here for you. And we stand with you as a community. And that's what we've got to do as a country. This diverse country, but all the tension that's here. So much of the time we've got to stand for these religious institutions and allow them to freely and openly practice their faith.
What do you think is leading to this intolerance?
I think there's a number of factors, but you know, honestly, we've just got a society and world that's gotten more aggressive and more hateful towards other people instead of understanding. I mean, honestly, it tears my heart sometimes when I watch the news and I see all this hatred towards people, and we've really got to start reaching out to one another and having some love and understanding and respect, even if you don't agree with the person. Just have a little common humanity and understanding and respect, but that's been declining so much.
Yeah, and I know that you're trying to do that with this committee. It's a bipartisan committee. Talk a little bit more about that and why that's so important.
This is an American right. It's not a Republican or Democrat right. This is an American right. It's your First Amendment right. It was a genius piece of the founders to see they weren't going to establish a church and they were not going to limit the free exercise of that. And that together allowed this great diverse nation to grow and prosper and create hospitals and schools and other things that religious institutions do. What we're about is protecting that foundational right, and we want to educate the public about it. We want to talk to the public about the beauty of this. And what this allows to take place in the world is for a very diverse country to be able to function and operate together, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah, and what is your big goal with the committee? What are you hoping to achieve?
You know, I really hope that we can help educate the public about this right, but also that we can get people to say, yeah, that's a fundamental right, and I want to stand for it, even if I'm not a religious person, or if I am a religious person. I want to stand for this. This is about what America stands for. It's a fundamental human right, and it's one around which you build the other human rights. So we're just trying to get back to the basics and shore up the cornerstone and the foundations of the Human Rights Project worldwide. They're based in the United States. They start and they grow here. We got to shore up our own foundation.
How do you think we can do that as we become more of a secular community? As we were talking to Andrea Picciotti Bayer in the previous segment about the case out of Boston with flying that Christian flag. How do you think we get back to our roots?
You know, I think he asked people, even that are very secular, say somebody that's a fully atheist, do you want to exclude Jewish people from being able to freely operate in the country? Do you want to exclude Christians or Muslims from freely operating in the United States? And I think most people would say, well, no, I want them to be able to freely practice and safely practice here. Well, then we've got to guarantee this right. The other thing is, if you don't have religious freedom around the world, you're going to have the clash of civilizations. You're going to see this big fight taking place between Christianity and Islam, or atheists and other people of faith, as their values clash. You got to protect the ability to be able to practice your faith, even if you disagree with the other person. This is just fundamental for us to create a society that a diverse society can operate in.
We have probably about 30 seconds or so left, but wondering any final thoughts. What do you want folks to know?
I want them to join. I want them to join the cause. And they can go on our website, thencrf.org, thencrf.org. And I want to join them, want them to help. This is a grassroots movement. We're going to organize in states. We'll have Virginians and New Yorkers for religious freedom. I want them to come on that site and say, look, I'm willing to fight to preserve this fundamental human right, and I'll join in and help the cause.
Well, Ambassador, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Thank you for all you do. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you very much.
Up next, why the Holy Father is asking the faithful to pray for Christian unity. And an American priest tells us about his work to advance dialogue between the Catholic and Jewish faiths. The Vatican is asking Catholic bishops to invite local Orthodox and Protestant leaders to participate in the early stages of the Synod on Synodality. In a letter released yesterday, the Holy See says the dialogue between Christians of different confessions has a special place in the synodal journey. The gathering of Catholic leaders takes place next year in Rome. Pope Francis reminds the faithful that something good can come from our suffering.
Gesù dice ai servi di riempire l'anfora di acqua.
At a Sunday address to pilgrims at the Vatican, the Holy Father suggested we offer up our suffering for the week of Christian unity that begins today. He adds that though Christians come from different faiths, we all keep our gaze fixed on Christ. The week of prayer for Christian unity began in the 1800s. The John Paul II Center for Interreligious Dialogue seeks to build bridges between the Christian and Jewish faith. Yesterday, it honored a priest from the Archdiocese of New York. Father Ryan Muldoon is the winner of the inaugural John Paul II Prize for Catholic Jewish Studies. Father Muldoon won the award for a paper called The Land of Our Fathers in Faith. The rabbi who presented the honor called the thesis something both Christians and Jews can read and both will feel represented. And Father Ryan Muldoon, winner of the John Paul II Prize for Catholic Jewish Studies, joins us now. Father Muldoon is a student at the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas. He is also a priest from the Archdiocese of New York. Father Muldoon, great to see you. Thank you so much for your time today. First off, congratulations on the award. What was your reaction when you found out that you won?
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I was completely surprised when I found out I had won the award because it is the first time that it is being awarded, and it was not made known anything about the award publicly beforehand. So I received a message that I was going to be receiving this award for my licentiate thesis that I completed in 2020. And it was quite a surprise. I'm back in New York working in a parish, and the email just came in one day.
That is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about the paper that you wrote? I understand it deals with Israel.
It does. It deals theologically with the land of Israel. It's a paper in Catholic Jewish Studies and Dialogue. And so the thesis is this: if we as Catholics are to be true dialogue partners to our brothers and sisters who are Jewish, then we need to strive to understand from within their attachment to the land of Israel. God promised the promised land to the people of Israel, and modern Jews today, to varying degrees, feel a sense of attachment to that land. And so we as Catholic dialogue partners to our Jewish brothers and sisters have to understand and appreciate that centrality that the land plays in Jewish identity.
And Father, can you talk to us, why is dialogue and understanding between the Catholic and Jewish faiths, why is that so important?
It's so important because, as John Paul II said when he visited the Great Synagogue of Rome for the first time in 1986, because Judaism is intrinsic to Christianity. It's not something extrinsic. We share our roots. Of course, Jesus himself was Jewish. Of course, the apostles and the early followers of Jesus were themselves Jewish. And Christianity comes to birth in the very bosom of first century Judaism, as some of the Catholic Jewish dialogue documents point out.
And before I let you go, can we talk a little bit more about the awards and the presentation?
Certainly. So the ceremony was held virtually yesterday with participants in Rome, New York, and others tuning in from around the world. Father Ytsync-en Destivel, a Dominican priest who is the director of the Institute for Ecumenical Studies at the Angelicum, began the program. The program was organized by Elena Dini of the John Paul II Center for Interreligious Dialogue. Rabbi Jack Bemperod of the John Paul II Center presented me, the awardee. Rabbi Jack was one of my professors and a mentor of mine, and then I delivered some remarks. And then finally, Cardinal Kurt Kolk, the president of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity, honored us all by his presence, and he gave the concluding remarks.
Well, it sounds like it was so wonderful. And again, congratulations, very well deserved. And thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Father Ryan Muldoon, winner of the John Paul II Prize for Catholic Jewish Studies. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
And Father Muldoon also weighed in on the recent spate of anti-Semitic attacks in the U.S. He says people of all faiths should unite against violence, and the bloodshed only further highlights the importance of dialogue and understanding. Well, finally tonight, as we prepare for the 49th annual March for Life in the nation's capital on Friday, one city in France held its rally for the unborn. In Paris, thousands participated in the 16th French March for Life on Sunday. It's an important week for the unborn in France. Tomorrow, the country is set to consider a bill that would extend legal abortion from 12 to 14 weeks of pregnancy. And we will continue to bring you updates on that story. And just a reminder, the 49th annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. is this Friday. You can watch it right here on EWTN starting at 8 a.m. Eastern with Mass from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, followed by a special coverage beginning at 9:30 a.m. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.